The heart of the nation of Israel speaks through you. Thank you so much, First Lady Michal Herzog, for joining me today at the Media Line.
Thank you, Felice.
It's been a difficult time for Israel. The Israel-Hamas war has brought about some horrific things, and some of them you've been very vocal about. The rape, the violence that Hamas had done, the barbarism that many didn't notice. And yet, something happened when you wrote the piece in Newsweek and the world took notice. Why did it take that piece to make that difference?
What happened on October 7th has changed lives. Has changed lives in Israel for many, but I think it also affected lives of many women around the world, not only in the Jewish community, but for women at large. And it took us a few days, it took me at least a few days to realize the atrocities and the gender-based violence on October 7th. It is something that is very difficult to talk about because it is something almost very personal in some ways. You think about the families of the victims, you think, of course, about the victims themselves. So I think coming out with statements about gender-based violence and using women as weapons of war is very difficult to do. And so I must admit it took me a few days to understand the atrocities, to understand the numbers, to understand the meaning. And it so happened that November 25th was approaching. And November 25th is the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. It's a recognized UN International Day. And I said to myself, you know, we usually speak about domestic violence, which of course is a very important issue, but this year something very different and very serious and very painful has happened. And I said, we must talk about it. And I tried talking. I spoke to many of my colleagues. You know, I'm a lawyer myself. If many of my colleagues have spent their lifetime fighting for women's rights, being consultants to international organizations exactly for that purpose, for the purpose of preventing the use of women in areas of conflict, of using their bodies as weapons. And they felt terrible. They felt betrayed by their colleagues around the world who did not speak out. So I said, maybe I can use my status, my voice, to sound out that horrible, horrible day. And that's what I did I wrote the op-ed for Newsweek. And I think it helped. I'm sure it helped pick up the issue and bring it to the attention of the world.
As a woman, as a mother, as a journalist who's a woman, and in our agency, we were reporting from almost the first days and heard from Zaka and heard from others that this was happening. And it's kind of the question I have for you is, why would it take the UN Women? Why would it take other women organizations so long to come forward on an issue that's so universal and so important?
It's a very painful question, I must say, because it does bring about the huge question of why did the international organizations not believe immediately, especially, as you say, we have witnesses, we have videos, we have first responders who found evidence, and yet we must ask ourselves, why is it that in this particular moment, and especially around October 7th and around Jewish and Israeli women, there was not the simple act of believing, just the belief, just the trust in what the victims went through. And I asked myself that, and I'm very sad. I don't know if I have one response for that. I think it's a few factors, but I think we have to turn it around and ask the world and ask the women in the world, and especially such organizations as UN Women, why it took them 8 weeks to put one phrase together, a phrase that had the word condemnation, Hamas, and violence against Israeli women in one phrase. And it felt like a betrayal to Israeli women. But as I say, it's not only about Israeli women. Israeli women, we are in the forefront now, but it's women of the world.
There are still women in Gaza that are held hostage, that one can't even begin to imagine what they might be going through. Yeah. Deep concern for everyone, it should be. What are your concerns that the Red Cross has not once gone to see them?
There are two parts to this. One is that the gender-based violence is ongoing, as the mere fact that they are still held in captivity over 86 days now is the continuation of the same atrocities. We saw women that came out, that came back, and what they've been telling us does not let us sleep at night. And we should worry about them every single minute, especially the younger women. And we want to see them all back. We must see them back. The other part is about the Red Cross. The Red Cross is an international organization that usually works with other legal entities, such as states. In this particular event, it's Hamas. Hamas has not let anyone in, has not let medicine in, has not let the Red Cross see them. And I don't think that our anger should be with the Red Cross, but it should be with Hamas. Hamas, who is using their own people, the people of Gaza, as hostages in some ways as well, because they are held under terrible conditions, and the leaders of Hamas and the Hamas terrorists do not care about them. We see that in the mere fact that Israel has gone through much work to let humanitarian aid in, and a lot of it in, and it's looted by the Hamas terrorists. And I think that we should understand that the women of Gaza, maybe under different circumstances, maybe one day will be able to put a voice to what they're really feeling right now.
So much humanitarian need on Israel's side as well. And when you wake up in the morning and you look at the impact of this war, the economy, the social issues, the children that have been affected, where do you begin?
That's a good question. Since I've taken on my role as First Lady, one of the issues that has been really a concern of mine is the issue of mental health. And this is really the foremost concern I have now for the mental health of all of us in Israel, especially of children and adolescents, people that were evacuated from their homes, that are not living in regular circumstances, that have seen horrible scenes in front of their eyes, families that were butchered, kids that have not gone back to school and know that many of their classmates are gone, their teachers. And I think this is an issue that really concerns me, is the mental well-being of our people. And I've been talking to many professionals in the field, You know, Israel was always very proud of its experience and its ability to share its experience of dealing with post-trauma, both of children, families, women, and soldiers as well, with others in the world, others that were in need, such as in Ukraine. And we are now faced with the worst situation and the worst event that we've had in the history of the State of Israel since its creation.
Ironically, you took First Lady Zelenska to Sheba Medical Hospital on exactly this kind of issue. Exactly. Did you ever dream that it would be almost flipped in terms of you have to deal with how am I going to help an entire nation in terms of PTSD, for example?
Mrs. Zelensky called me a few days after October 7th to see how we were doing and to express her concern and the concern of the Ukrainian people. And I told her, Olena, when you were here just a few months ago, we did not imagine that this is the place we would be at. But I'm very confident in our professionals, and I'm very confident in the experience that Israel has gained through so many years that we will overcome and we will find the right tools to remedy the people of Israel.
You are among the mothers that has a child in Gaza. When is the last time you spoke with him?
He was home about 2 weeks ago. But you know, I'm like many, many mothers in Israel. I'm concerned, but also I trust that they do the best work, and I'm very proud of him, and I'm very proud of our soldiers, and I wish they will all be back soon, safe and sound at home. But I know, and I meet all the reservists on the border, ready to go in, and I speak to many families, and I mostly speak to many of the wives of the reservists that are, you know, holding the fort, keeping up the families, keeping up with their jobs and their careers and continuing. And I think they're also the heroes of this situation.
First Lady Herzog, you were thrown into this, a war that nobody anticipated. And here you're going and meeting with hostages and going to Kibbutz Be'eri with presidents like the president of Germany, and you're witnessing things that you probably never dreamed you would. So when you think about and reflect upon what you've experienced in the last few months, what comes to your mind? I mean, you must have to dissect all this, digest all this, understand that there's a greater picture here.
So, you know, the president and I are on a mission. When you're a public figure, it's not only the fun days and the nice ceremonies and representing Israel abroad in conferences or in other state visits. It's also about working and doing the best for your people. And that's what we're doing now, day in, day out. That's what we feel and we know must be our mission now. And our mission is also to listen to the people, to hear them out, to help them as much as we can, and also to keep the unity of the people of Israel. This is the most important role we have now, and we hear that from every bereaved family we visit, and unfortunately we visit many of them, and we hear it from every corner of this beautiful country. And it's beautiful to see the people coming together and working and feeling responsible for each other. And I hope this unity continues and strengthens with time.
This war between Israel and Hamas is like no other. And it's gotten very personal. Talk about what happened with the rapes. There's not a family that isn't impacted in some way. It's true. Is there something that can't be fixed?
So you rightly said that we're a small country, we're a small nation. We all know someone who was affected, either the first circle God forbid, of victims or bereaved families, or the people from the kibbutzim who were evacuated from home and do not know yet when they will be able to go back. So we are all affected. But I think this also makes it very special because we all care for each other and we feel the responsibility. And I think the trust the people build among themselves. It's a very diverse country, very diverse communities, but they all feel responsible for each other, and you can see that. You can see that in the responsible way in which the non-Jewish communities, the Arab communities are taking part in the solidarity at this time. We visited the Haifa University, for instance, as the academic year began yesterday, and that university has almost half of its students are Arab Israelis. And you can feel that they all understand the importance of staying together, of keeping togetherness, keeping the solidarity of the Israeli nation and moving along into hopefully a much better future for all of us.
Since the president took office, you have met with many world leaders, their spouses. Is there any particular meeting that stands out or a particular person that stands out that had great impact on your world?
Oh, there are so many wonderful leaders around the world that one is very proud to meet. And I am particularly thankful to my very good friend, Elke Budenbender, the wife of the German president, who has become a very close personal friend. And she really expressed her concern, her care, her love for Israel during the recent visit and during our many conversations, and I'm thankful for that. But I'm also very thankful for many other leaders who have shown up. Of course, the American administration, President Biden, has been amazing, has been wonderful, and we see the United States as Israel's wonderful, strong friend, and this is very important. And I also want to say that keeping the Abraham Accords alive and kicking is super important. And as the president recently visited UAE for the COP, for the International Conference on Climate, he was very welcomed, and this is very, very important for the continuation of the integration of Israel in this very important region.
Relationships are built people to people. And actually, it was my next question about the Abraham Accords, because as the wife of the president, the first lady, there are so many relationships that you build. What has been the pulse of the Abrahamic Accord nations during this very tough time?
So as I said, the president was very welcome at the UAE, and I see it as you said, people to people is the most important factor. Also in historical processes, that is my great belief. I believe that people speak to people. And you know, I must tell you that exactly a year ago, I was with the Israel Philharmonic Orchestra in Abu Dhabi in a very special concert, first time with the Israeli orchestra on the United Emirates, playing Hatikva there. And I think it was so meaningful, and I think this is continuing and the relationship is growing.
Are you amazed by the reaction of the world to the Israel-Hamas war? And it hasn't all been positive towards Israel. There's been a lot of negative rhetoric against the Jewish state.
I think we have seen unusual rise, tremendous rise in anti-Semitism around the world. It doesn't always reflect, of course, the way the leadership of those countries sees Israel and supports Israel. You can see anti-Semitism in American campuses, whereas the leadership of the United States, of course, is very supportive of Israel. You can see in London rallies. I think many of them, the anti-Israel rallies, stem from ignorance. Because I think if we would talk to the people on the street and ask them, what do they know? What do they know about women's rights in Gaza or LGBTQ rights in Gaza? Why do they support Hamas? On the one hand, they are pretend to be very liberal, the people that take part in these rallies. On the other hand, they don't understand what's going on the ground in Gaza. So I think a lot of it stems from ignorance and from identifying with the underdog sometimes. But I hope people look more deeply into the truth and into reality on the ground and do not always believe, just slogans.
You just met with a group of young university students. Yes. Many of them are facing very difficult times on college campuses that many fear they don't want to be there anymore. They fear for their safety. What do you feel should be done where Israel can assist the United States, as opposed to always the United States looking to assist Israel to help solve some of these very deep problems?
So we did meet with a wonderful group of young students. I felt, maybe they were afraid in some way, but I also felt that these were very courageous young people that came here to Israel, not only on a solidarity visit, but they came to learn. They came to pick up facts, to know how to respond to the people that attacked them on campus. And I felt that they were very courageous, and we encouraged them to go back and bring their message of hope. And that's a question of education. When you speak to people, when you educate them, when you tell them the truth and the facts, this is the best tool.
First Lady Herzog, what is your greatest fear when this war is all over? And the opposite.
First of all, I wish that all our soldiers from the fronts, both in the north and the south, will come back home safe and sound. And I pray for this country to stay united, for the people of Israel to stay united, to understand what is the important message that we got from this, that we have enemies, fierce enemies on the outside, but inside we should be united and continue our togetherness, continue the strength of this wonderful, wonderful country. We don't have another Israel. We can't spare.
First Lady Michal Herzog, it's been an honor to speak with you today. Keep the strength and the voice. Many are waiting and listening. Thank you.
Thank you very much.